is, running it down on these niggas.
Sex, drugs, money, and murder, my nigga. You know how we get it, my nigga. Still be painting them bitches, my nigga. Ripping that raw and fucking your bitches. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. 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 Niggas, they never will hurt you. Niggas, they never will hurt you. Sex, drugs, money, and murder. Sex, drugs, money, and murder.
How the traps right, understand how to get that. Ran down on them niggas with a flip back. Knew I never seen another nigga live like that. I was still getting stacks back. Had to fuck around getting them packs back.
Bulletz Gotti. This video right here that I'm doing, man, I really want to discuss an era in hip hop that could never be duplicated. And you know me, I like to do my street videos. You know, I like to do my street videos, and I like to do my music and all type of different content. But in this one right here, I really want to touch on the hip hop scene, especially in late 90s, in the 2000s. And I always say it was three crews that stood out in the East Coast, in my opinion, during hip hop, that really in my mind stood out, that really had like the control. When I say like the control of the radio, control of the television, just control of everything, was, in my opinion, Bad Boy, G-Unit, and Ruff Ryders. When it comes to the East Coast, right? And I always say that was next to them, like a movement-wise, was like, you had Death Row, right? You had Death Row Records. You had, you had No Limit, Rap a Lot, Cash Money, you know. Don't get me wrong, I love Wu-Tang, right? Wu-Tang Clan, but I tell people all the time that Wu was really, they was a group, and they was the biggest group. But when you talk about like record labels, like literally a record label that like 3 record labels that just had an unstoppable run, like when it comes to like what they did successfully worldwide in hip hop, was Ruff Ryders, Bad Boy, and G-Unit. And I'm gonna explain to you why. When Bad Boy took control in 95, right? In the East Coast, when Biggie died, that's how you know Bad Boy had like an ill effect on hip hop, especially in the East Coast. They killed Def Jam, they killed Uptown, like everything that was moving in the East Coast was like, it was now a cipher. Nothing was moving. You understand what I'm saying? Nothing was moving until like Bad Boy just had it, because they had the mixtape scene. This is how you know Bad Boy was so ill. They controlled the streets, the industry. They controlled the industry. They controlled the clubs at that time. And they just controlled the radio, and they controlled the TV. And they had joints for the ladies, they had joints for the streets, had joints for the clubs. That's what Bad Boy was so great at, right? That when No Way Out came out, and then they had the tour, like, that solidified their legacy right there. You know what I'm saying? They was like the Chicago Bulls. You look at it, you had fucking Mace. Biggie done died. Big set the tone in 97. Let's just keep it real. He set the tone in 97 for Bad Boy. So you had Big. You had Mace, the Locks, Black Raw, Puff. Like, they just was killing it. And they had the Clue tapes. They had the Cool Kid tapes. They had the doo-wop tapes. They all over the S&S tapes. Like, they was so solid, like the way they solidified their legacy. They had iRock. And one thing I like about Bad Boy, and I saw Ruff Ryders do the same thing, and I seen G-Unit do the same thing. And this is what I always say about them when they came into the East Coast. That street team shit. The way they market the street team. The way they market the mixtapes. Like they control that mixtapes. Like Bad Boy, a lot of niggas don't know this. But Bad Boy started that whole mixtape things with the Bad Boy mixtapes. For like, cause at the time, only DJs did mixtapes. The blend tapes, you know, you had S&S, Doo-Wop, Clue, and, you know, Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri. The DJs control the tapes. But Bad Boy was so smart that they, how you say, monopolized that market and gave niggas exclusives on Bad Boy. And that it was so fire how they did it. They had the Bad Boy mixtapes. The Bad Boy mixtapes changed the game, which you would get G-Unit mixtapes, the same blueprint that Puff was doing in 9-5 is the same shit that 50 did. You know what I'm saying? And even Ruff Ryders did it too, right? So Ruff Ryders, the same thing, just like Bad Boy. When X came out in 98, they changed the game. The sound of music changed. Puff and them changed the sound of music. Let's just keep it real. You know, if you look at the East Coast, Bad Boy changed the sound of music. Like, it was the bounce of the music was different. It was the jiggy era, you know, the shiny suits era. You know, everybody was trying to get a record either with Trackmasters or the Hitmen. And Trackmasters, quite as it kept, was under before they had their situation. They did a lot of that Bad Boy shit. You know, that Craig Mack, Biggie, they was there, you know, Trackmasters. So it's the same, it's literally a little bit the same umbrella, because Trackmasters was really, how you say, fundamentally, a lot of those big hits, especially a lot of those Hitman hits. A lot of niggas don't know this. The Trackmasters they did Be Happy. I think Poke did Be Happy. Poke did Who Shot Ya, and One More Chance. That's Poke. Trackmasters was a part of the Hitman. A lot of things. So that whole sound, it comes from that same, it's really that same circle. It's really that same Hitman. So the Trackmasters, the Hitman, it's the same family. Okay? So the Trackmasters, the Hitmen and Puff, they changed the sound of music. 80s samples, you know, late 70s disco samples. You know, it was like, damn, these niggas is changing the whole synergy of hip hop. Like, it went from 9-4 and 9-3, Pete Rock and Premier, to now every nigga that's getting on gotta get a Trackmasters or gotta get a Hitman beat. So they changed the whole sound, right? Changed the whole frequency, the whole bounce, right? Same thing that Ruff Ryders did in 98. Changed the whole sound of hip-hop in the East Coast, where every nigga wanted to work with Dane Grease, and every nigga wanted to work with Swiss Beats. You look at it. Everything that came out 98 to the 2000s was either Swiss Beats produced or Dane Grease. You heard what Jay said. He wanted Dane Grease to do Volume 2. He was copying the DMX formula. let's keep it real. Jay copied the whole Bad Boy formula in 97. And in 98, he was copying the Ruff Ryders formula. Because Ruff Ryders changed the whole sound of music. Like the way Swiss and Dane Grease was coming was so crazy because if you look, Bad Boy had that crazy sound. Bad Boy was they was hitting it out the park. You heard what all of them said, Leo and all of them. You heard what they said. Like we couldn't fuck with Bad Boy. So when DMX came, he just changed it and shifted the game. So now Ruff Ryders is in charge, and that's what landed Ruff Ryders the situation at Interscope, which just shows you how much they took over and the way they took over the streets. Ruff Ryders took over the sound, like they took over the streets. X was having a ridiculous run. The mixtapes, he's all over the mixtapes. Ruff Ryders, all over the mixtapes. The Locks, X, Eve, they all over the mixtapes. Then they drop, just like what Puff did with No Way Out. He introduced the world to Mace, The Locks, Black Rob, on No Way Out. Ruff Ryders, they introduced the world to Eve, Drag On, Infrared, Cross, The Locks, X. The whole fucking, like, that whole movement was so popping, and it just was. And then what I liked it what Ruff Ryders did was how they marketed with the whole bike life movement. So that's how they really had like a real ill run, that they marketed with the bike life movement. So a lot of niggas was like, okay, these niggas is different. Ruff Ryders is different. Like, and then you see how they took over the game, and they had like the whole industry. And what really sprung out of that, Murder Inc., John them, which come out of that whole Ruff Ryders regime, if you want to be technical. And that Ruff Ryders regime was like a force to be reckoned with. They couldn't stop them. They was the biggest money makers. And then they had the Ruff Ryders and Cash Money tour. They was the biggest money makers for Def Jam and Interscope. Let's just keep it real. They had Eve, they had the Locks, they had X. So they really had like, they monopolized the industry and they monopolized the radio just like Puff did. They had the clubs on lock. They had the radio on lock. They had the TVs on lock. They had the streets on lock. Just like what Bad Boy did. The same thing that Bad Boy did in the East Coast is the same thing that Ruff Ryders did in the East Coast. Everything was moving. It was the Ruff Ryders. Like they could not stop it. It was on steroids. The Ruff Ryders was on steroids. Everything had, that's why they had to get, and mad niggas had to get Swiss to do their records. Mad niggas, because Swiss was like, the Ruff Ryders sound was just that ill sound. Like niggas couldn't fuck with how DNY, like DNY's, like I always say, like Puff, DNY, smartest niggas in the game. And everybody was able to shine. Let's keep it real. Everybody was able to shine. And they had control of the industry. To get 2 deals, X on Def Jam, they got that on lock. And then you got, come on. You know what I'm saying? And like, I want to give a big shout out to Chris Lighty, because Chris Lighty, with his Violators movement, was another huge movement. You know what I'm saying? Even though it wasn't a record label, it was a management company, but they gave great compilation albums. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people was under that management. And Chris Lighty, let's keep it real, because I want to give flowers to him too. Him and Irv Gotti and Chris Lighty saved Def Jam Records. Because Def Jam Records was downhill. Them two dudes saved that label. Let's just keep it real. You know what I'm saying? And with the whole compilation album that Chris Lighty did, you know, that changed the game, and how many people that come out of that umbrella, like Chris Lighty had to control the management. That's why a lot of niggas hated Chris Lighty. The Steve Stouts, the Jimmy Henchmans, they hated Chris Lighty because this nigga had everybody. Puff, DMX, 50, Ja Rule, Mobb Deep, Mace, Sean, Cormega. I think even AZ, Nas he had. Like, the nigga had control of the whole city. Big Pun, Fat Joe. So he was LL. He was brokering deals and was one of the smartest men to ever do it in hip hop. But I'm gonna do a video on Chris Lighty and Irv Gotti because I really want to give them brothers they flowers of how they was so brilliant in hip hop. But I just wanted to take that time to say that those men were the smartest men in hip hop, especially in New York City. But it goes back to what I was saying about who was I talking about? Puff. Puff and the Ruff Ryders. Ruff Ryders was like, they were so smart at how they capitalized the market promotion-wise that they had the DJs. Because one thing would make a crew promotional-wise is that they had the DJs. They had the right DJs in pocket. They had Clue, K-Slay, you know, the same dudes that Puff had, Clue, you know, SNS and WAP, Doo-Wop, and, you know, Clue, and all them cats, you know, K-Slay, like I said, K-Slay, and Ron G, SNS, all of them dudes, man. Like, they was Cool Kid, you know. They had, and Who Kid, they had everybody in pocket. So a lot of Ruff Ryders exclusive shit was dropping on mixtapes, you know, and you had a whole mixtape. It was either Bad Boy, Ruff Ryders. That was all on the mixtapes. Like, they had, I'm gonna keep it real, they had to dominate, they dominated the radio. They dominated the radio, puffing them. It was a neck and neck. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, niggas say, oh, Rockefeller, but to be technical, you know what I'm saying? You had Beans, you had Jay, you had Bleak, you know, and really, it was either Jay and Beans, really, because niggas ain't really fuck with Bleak, you know what I'm saying? And in that movement, to keep it real, it was a good movement, but it wasn't a global movement. You know what I'm saying? Like how these niggas was moving. These niggas was moving units. Okay, like they had the world in the palm of their fucking hands. That's how big these movements was. So with Ruff Ryders, with D&Y now, they took what Puff and them was doing and took it to a whole different level. They just small hustlers. And what I admire is that the connection of the bike movement, you know, to put the motorcycle shit and them to be a street team, and then to have the marketing down, how they had it, and they had the Ruff Ryders workout videos and all that. And it's like, damn, these niggas had the most smartest hustle, like, ever. Like, if you really look at it, like, when it came to movements, it was nothing moving. Like I told you, 98 to, I would say, 2002, Ruff Ryders had a strong impact on the game. Straight up and down. They had a strong impact in the game. You know what I'm saying? Even though X was going through what he was going through, they still was moving. Because remember, they had Swiss, Cassidy come out of that movement, and which that birthed Full Surface. So they still had like a real balance in the game, and they still was going crazy, right? Same with Bad Boy. Bad Boy had a strong, you know, when you look at it, you had No Way Out, Forever, and Saga Continues, and still was on the radio, still was making motion. You know, Puff and them was making motion. You know what I'm saying? Even though you had the Ja Rules, you had all that, you know what I'm saying, around that time. But them brothers had emotion. They had, you know, everything was, like I said, everything, Rough Riders and Bad Boy, and even, I'm going to get the G Unit, they had control of the radio still. You know, they had control of the radio. You know, I don't give a fuck if it was a remix or whatever. They had it. You know what I'm saying? If you was watching Rap City during those times, or you was watching any of those video shows during that time, that's who you saw. With the brothers in the South and the brothers in the West. Those are the three that you saw that was mobilizing situation. Now, when 50 came, he was Rough Riders and Bad Boy on steroids. Let's just keep it real. 50 was both of those cliques on steroids. Because the way he mobilized the game was like, damn, this nigga 50, he took from the Bad Boy blueprint and he took from the Rough Riders blueprint. And it was so small how 50 took from both blueprints. And he was able to mobilize, because what 50 did was, okay, we're going to make the chick records, we're going to make the club records like Bad Boy, and we're going to make the street records like motherfucking Rough Riders. And we're going to capitalize that whole street market, and we're going to lock the mixtape circuit down, because we're going to have Clue, we're going to have Green Lantern, we're going to have Wu Kid, we're going to have K-Slay, we gonna have, who was around that time doing it? Cutmaster C. We gonna have all them niggas, right? Cool Kid, all them niggas. We gonna have all them niggas, and we gonna lock it down. We gonna lock it down. And that's what 50 did. He locked the mixtape circuit down. He locked everything down. So when his album came out, the nigga sold 13 mil. Went crazy, comes back, Beg for Mercy. Worldwide, it sold more than Black Album. Worldwide, 6 million copies. 50 did 6 million copies worldwide. With Banks, Buck, Yayo on the album, and 50. Outsold, killed Hove. You know what I'm saying? We talking about a nigga selling 6 million copies out the gate. New artist, rookie of the year. This nigga done dropped an album that went 13 million. Now he drops another album which sold 6 million copies. They couldn't fuck with him. They couldn't fuck with 50. Niggas gotta really look at it. Niggas couldn't fuck with 50 when he came in 2003. His run was impeccable. And then what I liked about his run, he gave us the compilation album, just like how Rough Riders did, just like how Puff did with No Way Out. He introduced the world to Banks, Yayo, and Buck, right? So when 2004 comes, Banks drop, Buck drop, 05, Game drop, Yayo drop, 50 drop, right? That's the smartest nigga. And they did the movie soundtrack, which shut it all down. So I always tell niggas, when you go back in those eras and you look at what was, everything that was moving, everything, it was G-Unit. Every nigga was trying to get a G-Unit sound, or they was trying to follow the 50 Cent blueprint. Every nigga that came out around those times, they was trying to follow the 50 Cent blueprint. They wanted a record with G-Unit. They want a feature. Because it's just like I said, with Rough Riders. Everything that was moving around that time, the locks was either featured on a record, DMX was featured, E was featured. You know, it's like, okay, Bad Boy, Mace, you know, LOX was on Bad Boy, Mace, Locks, Black Rob, you know, Big had passed away, but everything, them niggas was getting on every feature. So when you got all these niggas on every feature around that time, it was like, damn, these niggas is really, they had control of the game. And that's why I tell y'all, like, we're talking about an era in time in hip hop where these dudes had that run. And then when G Unit came, every nigga wanted to do a record with G Unit. You know, just look. 50 had all of the R&B collaborations. Everything. 03, they collaborating. Banks, Buck, they on everybody's shit, collaborating. Because everybody wanted that G Unit sound. And what niggas wanted was the G Unit sound. Just like how niggas wanted that Rough Rider sound. And niggas wanted that Bad Boy sound. That's what niggas wanted when G Unit came out. Everybody wanted the G Unit sound. And you just look around that time, Busta Rhymes, Mary, R&B cats, yeah, the R&B cats wanted the G Unit sound. You listen to Kingdom Come. A lot of those beats on that Kingdom Come album was 50 Cent throwaways. Let's keep it real. 30-something, Lost Ones, all done by, come on, those are 50 Cent throwaways. Those are beats that 50 didn't want. Let's keep it real. They knew the blueprint. They knew what 50 was coming with. They wanted that 50 Cent sound. Every nigga that came in the game, they wanted a 50 Cent sound. You listen to every nigga around that time, LL. Before LL did Exit 13, originally 50 was supposed to executive produce Exit 13. And a lot of the shit, if you heard Bump This and Queens and all them joints that he was doing with LL, son, it had the 50 Cent formula. Little Scrappy. Like everything that was moving, niggas was trying to do the 50 Cent formula. MOP, when they went over there, 50 Cent G Unit sound. Mobb Deep, they had the G Unit 50 Cent sound. You know, Ace when he went over there to 50 Cent. So it's like so many motherfuckers around that time in music was like, okay, we got to follow this 50 Cent formula. We got to get records with High Tech. We got to get records with Scott Storch. You saw Fat Joe, Scott Storch, come on. Cool and Dre. You listen to that Christina Milian Jeezy record. That's Hate It or Love It if you want to be technical. Everybody know 50 Cent controlled the industry and had the sound of music. 50 had it on lock. To the point niggas couldn't fuck with him. When you got the sound of music and you control the trajectory of the sound of music, it's like, damn, this nigga is like, just like when the Wu came out in 9-3. RZA controlled the sound. He switched the sound up. He brought that whole soul samples to the game. Pete Rock, Large Pro, and many others. So when 50 and G Unit came out, it was like, okay, these niggas is changing the trajectory of the sound of music right now in hip hop. Everybody got to get a Scott Storch beat. Everybody got to get a High Tech. Everybody got to get a Shy Money XL beat. You know, a Red Spider beat. You know, it was like that. Like everybody got these producers that 50 was fucking with. It's like, oh, I need a JR. I need a beat from JR. You know what I'm saying? I need a beat from Buck Wild. Like, it was like, damn, this nigga 50 is just going crazy. And it's like, he changed the trajectory of the sound of music. And when you got an ear for music, you can understand how a nigga could change the sound. And 50 changed the sound just like how Bad Boy changed the sound, just like how Rough Riders changed the sound. And I always say the most important crews to come out of the East Coast, in my opinion, the three best is Bad Boy, Rough Riders, and G Unit. You know, what they was able to do with hip-hop at that time coming out of the East Coast, they show like, oh, these niggas is different. They just different. They just different. And it's like, you had to respect it. You had to respect it. And it wasn't a lot of movements that moved like that. And then don't get me wrong, yeah, Rockefeller was cool, but Rockefeller didn't change the sound of the music. You know, it's just certain niggas didn't. Like, I love Irv. Irv definitely, but Irv comes out of that Ruff Ryders movement. You know what I'm saying? Because he was there from the beginning, the success of DMX, and he was there from the beginning. So he is Ruff Ryders through and through. You know what I'm saying? And he definitely is a part of that monumental history. You know what I'm saying? So I always say, like, when it came to crews and it came to movements in New York City, I've never seen a movement that was so influential like how Ruff Ryders and Bad Boy and G Unit was. There'll never ever be another East Coast movement like those three in hip hop, because the way they did it was like, okay, we gonna shut this whole shit down. We gonna lock it down to the point that we gonna give you street, we gonna give you party, we gonna give you chick shit, and we gonna give you all of that. All be above. We gonna give you all be above. And we gonna dominate the airwaves, and we gonna dominate the TV. And that's what those movements was able to do. Dominate the airwaves and dominate the TV. Let's just keep it real. Ruff Ryders had more videos on TV than a little bit. G Unit had more videos on TV than a little bit. Bad Boy had more videos on TV than a little bit. You know what I'm saying? A little bit. You know what I'm saying? That's how you dominate eras. And that's why I always tell niggas, what era? Because everybody had an era. Everybody had an era. Bad Boy had an era. Ruff Ryders had an era. G Unit had an era. Everybody else, you know, it's what it is. Death Row had an era. You know what I'm saying? No Limit had an era. You know? And then the era that Bad Boy was in, they was in the era of Death Row, Rap A Lot, No Limit. Let's keep it real. Ruff Ryders, Cash Money, you know, that was the era they was in. Ruff Ryders and Cash Money, neck and neck, right? G Unit, and Murder Inc. Murder Inc. was there. And with G Unit, Disturbing the Peace, you know, Cash Money still around, you know, it was just, those was the eras, man. And I always say, man, them three, that's the big three, man. That's the big three right there. I'm going to just keep it real. That's the big three. You know what I'm saying? I would have put Murder Inc. in there, but it's like Murder Inc. just didn't have that many success. They had a lot of records that came out of Murder Inc., but just didn't have, like, what Ruff Ryders and them had. Like, niggas dropped albums. Let's keep it real.